Okay, hi guys. Welcome to the first edition of Master Your Application by the Changemakers Society. I am Harita GB, co-head of CMS, along with Swanuja. First of all, we would like to thank you for the great response. Our previous placement days received a lot of positive feedback, and we thought we would cater to the crowd of people who are applying to masters, and we quickly arrange this for you guys. So we sure hope that you get some solid takeaways from this, and you can consider this as a reality check of your preparation as well as some motivation or some pep talk to get you guys started. So, coming to the reason that we really started this, we wanted to clarify the whole process and make sure that you don't have any doubts about how to go about it. A lot of us are confused about where to start, how do you shortlist colleges, when do you apply, when do you start thinking about these things. And we thought we all want to talk to seniors, but not all of us know the right seniors. So we have put together a panel for you that can cater to all your interests and make a good give you good sources of information that and you can draw from their own experiences. So we at CMS believe that this would be a wonderful initiative where seniors can talk about their experiences and help out juniors and hopefully make it a little less overwhelming. And you are very lucky because we have a highly achieved panel today and brilliant speakers. So before handing over to Swanuja, who is also the co-head of CMS, here's a disclaimer. The speakers do draw from their own experiences so as to not spread misinformation and to present things to you as accurately as possible. Swanuja?
Hi guys, this is Swanuja and welcome to Master Your Application. We are going to start the session with each speaker sharing their story and journey with us. The panelists will then answer questions that were sent to us through the Google form. Please feel free to type any questions you have in the live chat. Our CMS member Dhriti will be sending these questions to us and we will answer them towards the end of the session. Moving on to introducing our speakers, we have Hemkesh Vijaya Kumar, who graduated from PESU in 2018 with a bachelor's degree in computer science and graduated from USC in 2020 with a master's degree in computer science. He is currently working as a software engineer at Proximo.io, a stealth mode startup in the San Francisco Bay Area. Our next speaker is Keertan Krishnan, who is a part of the 2020 batch of CSE graduates from PES. He graduated in July 2020 and started his master's in data science program in September 2020 from Columbia University, New York, and is expected to graduate by May 2022. Our next speaker is Tarun Sharma from the PES batch of 2013 to 17 from the computer science department, and he did a 6-month internship at SAB during his 8th semester at PES. After that, he did a 1-year research assistantship at Brown University and is currently doing his PhD in neuroscience at CalTech. And our final speaker is Vandana Kulkarni, who is also from the PES batch of 2014 to 18 and did her engineering in computer science and did her master's in computer science at University of Illinois Urbana Champaign. She did her internships in her undergrad at IIT Madras, IISc, and IIT Hyderabad. And she is currently working at NVIDIA in California. Over to you, Harita.
Thank you for the introduction, Swanuja. Now that we all know our panelists, let's start off the session by briefly listening to their journeys. So over to you, Hamcash.
Yeah, thank you, Harita. First of all, I want to say that it's really great to address such a huge audience. I hope it's a good learning opportunity for everyone listening in. I feel Changemakers Society is a great initiative, and it's great to have interaction of juniors and seniors, and that feedback loop should be completed. Let me share about my experience and how when I decided to do my masters, how I prepared for it, and when I applied for it. It wasn't one single semester or a moment where I finalized my decision to pursue a masters. It was somewhere between my third and sixth semester, somewhere in that time range. Uh, uh, so initially, in my second year, after my second year summer, I hadn't received any internship like all my other batchmates. My GPA was a bit low, around the 8 range, and I didn't know what to do. So what I did was a minor in management, and that's where I just wanted to cross out doing an MBA after my graduation. Uh, in that, so I took up courses like finance, marketing, etc. And I decided I don't want to do an MBA after my master's, after my bachelor's. um, During one of the courses, the professors also asked me to like list down a list of goals I want to achieve after my bachelor's degree. And there I was like I want to do a master's. I was still deciding between master's and work, etc. The final nail in the coffin was when I took a data analytics course in fifth semester under Professor Gauri. That's when I decided I want to be a master in data science. I want to specialize in that, and I decided that's when I want to do my masters in data science. Moving forward, when did I start preparing? As I said before, I started preparing at the beginning of my sixth semester. Uh, I took all the resources I had, like all the 30-day plan, 90-day plan, etc. It didn't really come into any fruit because I didn't start studying. What helped me start preparing was actually paying for some classes during my summer after my uh, fourth semester. Sorry, after my sixth semester, and that's when I started studying on the weekends along with my internship that summer. Uh, how did I start preparing? I actually I just followed like two books, the GRE Princeton Review uh, for the GRE preparations and the TOEFL Cambridge preparation for the TOEFL test. Those are just the two books I followed along with the classes I took. And I also use Magoosh verbal flashcards as well to prepare for my verbal. Um, and during my seventh semester, finally during my seventh semester, uh, in August I took my GRE. In September I took my TOEFL, and late in the semester, like December and November, that's the time when I started applying to universities, etc. Uh, the thing about that is, I'll bring about this point later in the session as well. I didn't get an admit very late until after my eighth semester, so I was still stuck between job search versus MS, whether to actually go or take GR again, which I'll cover later. But finally, in May or late May, I just got an admit from USC, and that's where I started doing my masters in USC. That's it.
Thank you, Hamkesh. That was a really good, a comprehensive cover of your journey. Moving on to Keertan.
Thanks, Harita. Hey guys. So before I start talking about my journey, I just want to congratulate the Changemakers Society for putting this together on such short notice, and also to you guys for like waking up at 8:30 a.m. in the morning and attending this, because being from the 2020 batch of CS graduates from PES, I certainly did not have a structured source of information like this from which I could, draw guidance for my preparation. So all of the information that I had gotten was gleaned from like various seniors and just Google searches, which takes a lot of time, first of all. And second, it's a lot of work that you have to put in and a lot of time just to get and figure out what you need to be doing in the first place. So moving on to my background, my story is far from perfect. I was in no way for a large part of my engineering degree at PES was I a model student in any way. So, and I feel like that's a relatable story for a lot of people because it was just off the back of the whole rejections from IITs and NITs and BITS and all of those, the so-called prestigious universities in India. So then I had just gotten in and I had put in half-hearted efforts for um, IIT JEE prep and all of that. So I was like, you know what? I just want to chill. And that's what I ended up doing. Like, I would say for almost 4 semesters, I was just chilling hard. Even though my grades never dropped below probably 8.4, but I wouldn't say that's down to my work. I would say that's because I always was fortunate enough to somehow managed to pair myself with smart teammates. So they'll do all the work and I would just chill and like ride on that wave and get myself marks as well. So I was in the process, I wasn't really learning too much. And then I think fourth sem was when I woke up and I was like, hey, you know what? I have not learned much from this entire journey because everybody else is just doing the work, taking the initiative, whereas I haven't learned much at all. And this had started maybe one sem before during my third semester. There's this course which I'm not sure if it's still there, but it was called Introduction to Data Science. And that course had a lot of statistics, and I still remember that it was one of the most hated courses amongst my batchmates. Everyone thought it was really hard, and it was different from what the traditional CS courses were. That being said, it's a very funny story because the first time I was, for the first CBT, I was like, let's study properly. And I did, and I ended up getting 39 or 40 out of 40. And that was the first time ever that I had crossed the 35 mark. And that just set in range into motion like a set of events where I was like, hey, you know what? I feel like I'm good at this. So I might like this. So from that, it went on to liking machine learning. And then it went on to my choices of electives as well, which was artificial intelligence and everything else. So that way I was very focused. Even when I did begin my preparation around third or fourth sem was when I decided that I want to do my master's in data science. And that way I was lucky to find what I enjoyed early on. Because of that, I was able to structure my work and also my resume in order to make sure that I was giving myself the best chance. So in my fifth and my sixth semester was when I started taking on more and more projects and more work. And in the end, like I learned that I really liked it. And that was what motivated me to do my master's in the first place. So when I started preparing I knew from my Google search in general that around my fifth or my sixth semester was the perfect time to start, given that I wanted to go immediately after my engineering itself. And I was also very lucky that I had a group of friends who also, like me, did not get an internship for my third summer. So after my sixth semester. So I was like, you know what, might as well use this time and prepare for GRE. And this is something that I do want to bring up later. The GRE resources that I did use, and also the timeline and how long I would say that it takes to prepare for it. But yeah, so I spent the entire summer preparing, and I would say that GRE and TOEFL kind of went together for me, after which I applied to colleges maybe starting in the November of 2019. So that was about 8 months or so, 9 months before I was set to graduate. And I also did not receive admits too early. So over the entire process, it is nerve-wracking. It is going to cause quite a bit of anxiety. But I think the one takeaway from my story is that if somebody like me can wake up where I was like, I don't even know if I want to be here, to, you know what, this is what I actually love. If someone can transform that much, then like I feel that anybody can. And props to you guys for showing up and taking these steps, because the semesters that you guys are in is the perfect time to start preparing, start thinking about these things. So well done to you guys. And yeah, that's my story.
Thank you, Keertan. I have a quick follow-up question. You mentioned that in fourth sem you had like the awakening and then you decided to properly structure your resume. How did you go about that? What do you mean like you properly structured your resume and how did you work towards that?
Right, okay. So what I mean by that is, so if you've taken the Introduction to Data Science course, it's a mix of statistics and a little bit of coding. So that was something that I enjoyed, and that translated to let's find courses along the same vein that I do enjoy. And it all started from this one little CBT that I studied well for and ended up doing well. And I was like, oh, okay, I might be good at this. And then it that excitement even went on to the other related courses, and I ended up enjoying all of them. And I feel like college is the undergrad time is the perfect time to go out and explore and find what you like. And I genuinely believe that I hadn't explored enough, which is why I was, or put in enough of an effort, which is why I was in the state of mind that I was in the first place, which was, do I even want to be here? Do I want to be doing this? Is this my passion? So all of those questions one by one got answered. Once I knew the domain, I knew the electives that I wanted to take. I knew the projects that I wanted to take. And in turn, that also meant that I knew which professors I wanted to contact and do work under, so that it all tied up to a cohesive application with good LORs and good project work, all of it done all at once. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Keertan. That was actually a very realistic journey that a lot of us find ourselves going through right now. A lot of confusion. But moving on, we can move on to Tarun now.
Hi everyone, thanks Haritha and Sonuja for organizing this. Because similar to the other speakers, I also feel like I didn't have anything like this when I was in PESIT, and something like this would have like really helped. So that's why I guess me and the other panelists decided to do this in the first place, because we figured it would be useful for you guys. But yeah, my journey is a bit different. I actually didn't do a master's. I don't have a master's. I'm not in a master's program. I don't even know why I'm this call. Just kidding. I'm actually in a PhD program right now. And my journey, the summary of my journey is pretty much. I don't know if this lab still exists in PESIT. It was called PESIT by the time when I was there. So there was this lab, which I think later got changed to Microsoft Innovation Lab or something. But when I was there, it was called the Nokia lab. The Nokia, it was in some basement, actually, the last room at the corner of the basement. But I started going to that lab in like my first year summer, just for like fun. And we were working on some quadcopter project as part of the summer thing. So that was like just a fun thing that I was doing in like my first year summer in PESIT. It wasn't like internship or something, but it was just more for like learning and stuff like that. And then in my second year, I kind of tried, me and a buddy of mine tried to take part in as many like hackathons as we could, because that was just like, we just enjoyed it, I guess, at the time. We were like pretty young, and then I think we were mostly excited about getting free stuff at the hackathons and like just getting like free food and free Red Bull and stuff. But it was like overall pretty fun. Like we would go for like 24 hours and make something small by the end of it. But yeah, or with time, we obviously got better. I think that was like a pretty useful experience that helped shape a lot of things. And then in my second year summer, that's like the summer after second year, I actually did an internship in a startup in Chennai. It was like the startup doing called Mad Street Den, like Mad, like MAD Street, and then Den DEN. And they were like pretty small startup at the time, like 10 people or something. And they were doing like some machine learning stuff and some computer vision stuff. And at the time, I guess even now, but at the time more when I was there, this machine learning stuff was like really starting to like gain popularity and like becoming like the thing to do in terms of like something that'll give you a future, I guess. So I was lucky enough to get into this startup and do an internship there over the summer. And in the startup, I definitely learned a lot doing the project and everything. But what was more useful for me was that the other students in the internship were like students from like different IITs. So I just got a bunch of exposure to like stuff that those guys were doing. And by the end of it, I realized that in the IITs and probably in the NIDs and stuff also, people like really try hard to go abroad in their summer after the third year in undergrad, like whether it be through college or through themselves. But just for that summer after third year, a lot of people, especially in IIT, they pretty much spam professors. Like they just like mail tons of professors, sending them emails being like, I'm at this college and I want to do an internship with you for like 2 months. Like you don't even have to pay me and stuff. Like they don't say that, but you don't usually get expected. You're not expected to get paid and stuff. It's just more for the opportunity and more for the letter of recommendation, because letters of recommendation are probably like the most important thing in or one of the most important things in your application. I was told when I was applying for my PhD that letters of recommendation are the most important. I don't know how it works in masters, but I'm guessing that it's pretty important. So I was trying to do that. I was trying to do the same thing, like go abroad in my third year summer, and there were actually a bunch of different options. So I'm guessing this is more relevant for the people who are in second year now. But there's like scholarship programs, and I think even PESIT has a few programs. And I ended up going by myself. Like I emailed a bunch of professors, and this guy at Brown, he responded. He was like, "Yeah, okay, cool. Like you can come work with me for like 3 months." So I did that in my third year summer, and then after that was the time to apply for all these for like masters and stuff. And at the time, yeah, I mean, I wanted to do a master's. Like, I didn't know I wasn't like clear about like anything that I wanted to do. I was just like, okay, I guess I'm in computer science, so I'll just apply in computer science because this is like the department that I probably have the highest chance of getting into. So I applied to the PhD with the guy at Brown, and everywhere else I applied for a master's. So I applied to like 12 places in total. And I didn't get into anywhere. I didn't get into most of the master's programs. I didn't get anywhere. And I feel like a large reason for that was that I kind of applied like pretty late. Like I pretty much like just winged it. Like, I don't know. I'm just used to like doing things in the last minute, and it wasn't very helpful for me in the case of the master's applications, I feel. Because I wrote my GRE and like TOEFL by like November, and I think usually the deadlines are like December 15th to like apply for like everything, for like completing everything. And I feel like I finished most of it between December 10th and December 15th. So like pretty much like last minute, calling up professors, like, please submit the letter of recommendation. You haven't submitted it yet. Pretty much last minute stuff. Because I also feel at some universities, they don't tell you this, but they probably do like rolling admissions where they start going through the applications in the order that at which it comes, and then they start like saying, okay, this guy's accepted, this guy's accepted. So if you're applying like pretty late, like close to the deadline, then it's probably not going to work in your favor. But yeah, having said that, so then I applied to 12 places, didn't get in anywhere, and then I was like, I knew I didn't want to work because I didn't like the whole like studying for placements. I didn't like going through that, studying the algorithms again, learning how to like reversing a tree and stuff like that. Like I just didn't want to do that. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. So my backup plan was to like go back to the Chennai startup, if I didn't get in any other opportunity. But then the guy at Brown said that, okay, I could like come and work with him for a year, do a research internship, like a longer research thing for like a year. So that turned out to be the best because he would like pay me, and then the getting the visa was a bit more complicated than before because now I had like graduated undergrad and wasn't in like a program, so I had to like do some more things to like get the visa and stuff. But yeah, anyway, I managed to go to Brown and spend a year there, and then spending time doing research over there in a similar field like machine learning, deep learning. Then my interests also kind of like changed to doing more like biological vision. I was doing computer vision pretty much for a long time at Brown, and even at PESIT and stuff. Like I started in my first year like with that drone project, and then I just ended up having most of my projects. Like I did something at CCBD and stuff on the side at PESIT and stuff like that. It just ended up being that most of my projects were in computer vision, and I even enjoyed like image processing and computer vision. So that's what I did at Brown. But towards the end of it, I was like kind of getting burnt out of the field itself. I was like, this, like, I mean, these machine learning algorithms are like really not that great. Like they fail a bunch, and they kind of suck like compared to like our own vision, and our own human vision is like kind of like really cool. We can do like so many things that these things can't do. So that's how I kind of started getting interested into like a neuroscience a bit. And then I knew at that point that I didn't want to do a master's. I felt like staying in research. I just saw so many advantages of doing the PhD over the master's. A big reason also being that for a PhD, you don't have to pay. There's no like tuition fees. So that was another thing. I didn't want to like take a loan and do a master's, because that's usually what people do. You take a loan and then you like get a job in the US and then you pay back that loan. But I didn't want to take that risk. And I also didn't want to like, I also felt like maybe I won't want to work later as well. So I don't want to be under that pressure to get a job later. So that was like a big reason. And also just the ability to like do research and stuff. PhD seemed more of a fit for what I wanted to do. So then I applied to a bunch of programs and I got into Brown and CalTech, and then I picked CalTech. And I came here initially to do vision. As I was saying earlier, I came here to do, there was a lab that studies vision in monkeys. So they do experiments and they record from the brain of the monkey while they're like showing them stuff. And they also do like a bunch of like machine learning stuff to like a bunch of models to like fit the data and stuff. So initially I thought, okay, that's perfect. Like I'll get some exposure to like biology and stuff. And also I know some of this stuff, like machine learning stuff at least. But then it didn't work out. I didn't end up joining that lab, and I ended up joining a different lab. And now I work with fruit flies. I do fruit fly research. Our lab studies the flight, different aspects of the flight of the fruit fly. My project is more about the stabilization, like how they stabilize when they're flying and stuff. So it happened to like deviate away from vision. But yeah, I mean, now I'm like pretty happy with, I don't have any regrets in picking the PhD or doing what I'm doing right now. It's like pretty cool, and I'm getting to learn a lot of stuff that I was like always interested in. So I guess, yeah, I guess overall I won't be able to answer a lot of like master's related questions, but if anyone has like PhD related questions, then I would be happy to answer it from the chat anytime. Yeah, that's it.
Right. Thank you, Tarun. The thing is that we are catering to all higher studies programs, and there are quite a few people who dropped questions about PhDs. So we're really glad to have you on board. And now we move on to Vandana.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Vanuja, and thanks, Harita and Changemakers Society for organizing this. As Tarun rightly pointed out, I still remember I created my LinkedIn profile. I was still going through the fact that I think I should buy LinkedIn Premium, and then try to message our seniors, and then try talking to friends who have some or the other connection with seniors and stuff like that. It was a crazy situation just to get some connection, but this program has been amazing for students for sure. To start with my journey, after my first year in undergrad, I went and did an internship in a startup called EasyTap Solutions. Well, at the end of 3 months, I'm pretty sure I just wrote a bunch of Python scripts. I'm pretty sure that never went in anywhere. It was like 10 lines of code and just trying to do whatever I could. It was just 1 year of undergrad experience and pretty bad internship experience, I would say, because I came back home after 3 months. I'm like, I did not do anything. And then, well, after second year, I think in second year, I sort of decided that I really wanted to do something for second year internship. And I think PESIT being quite a nerdy school, I would say. A lot of people started looking for internships, and that sort of motivated me. And somehow I mailed up professors, and somehow I got into IIT Madras as a research assistant, a research intern. And that was for about 3 to 4 months. It's pretty crazy that I took an architecture project as as a part of my internship project, because for me, in your second year, you just learn computer architecture, microprocessors and stuff like that. And you really did not know anything about machine learning, and everyone spoke just about machine learning and artificial intelligence. And for me, that sort of was intimidating, because I'm like, I just studied computer architecture in my college, but then I have no idea about machine learning, and people were just talking about it. But then, well, I went ahead, I did my architecture, internship, computer architecture internship. It was a great journey, I would say, because that's the first time I actually came in contact with something called research. I did not know what research was. I also started writing a paper that did not get published because I came back from IIT Madras, and then the long distance and virtual paper writing never really got through anywhere. So that was a bit disappointing, because I was like, oh, I'm going to write a paper, but then that really did not happen. In my third year, we were sort of introduced to a couple of electives, which definitely artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, a lot of such electives were available for us to take. But then I think in third year, I sort of decided that I wanted to do something in systems, which particularly included operating systems or compilers, because compilers was one of the courses that we were supposed to take. And a lot of people struggled with it, but I was this extremely weird student who loved compilers, who loved operating systems and stuff like that. So I still remember my dad came up to me and he's like, you have artificial intelligence as your elective. You really need to choose artificial intelligence. And then I had this entire debate of artificial intelligence. Do I have to choose that versus do I want to do something like compilers that people don't even talk about? Is this a saturated field? What are my job opportunities? Is there any point of doing this? All those questions. But eventually I ended up taking a course called high performance computing, which is sort of related to GPU programming and stuff like that, but definitely not anywhere in the artificial intelligence / machine learning domain. And that course was amazing. I think that was the time when I decided that I will be going into systems field because of most of the courses that I was taking as electives. I think this was sometime around this time that I realized my IIT Madras research internship was amazing. And this is the time that I started realizing I want to do masters, because if I really compared EasyTab, which was an industry-oriented internship, versus research internship, I really loved, studying and doing research and stuff like that. So I applied to this, before I actually applied to IIT Madras, there was this quite a interesting incident that happened. So I just mailed, as Tarun pointed out, I just mailed a lot of professors in IISc. I stayed in Bangalore, so why try IIT Madras? Just let's go to IISc. So I mailed a couple of professors, and there was this one architecture professor who selected, and he was like, hey, just come over to my office. I'm going to interview you. So I was like, okay, I mean, I was in second year. I just finished my second year. I was like, what is he going to ask? I think I know everything. I probably went with that attitude. He just completely screwed me up. I wasn't able to answer any of the questions. And he just said, come back next year or think about what you want to do. And that was pretty disappointing. I just remember going back home and just crying about it and, thinking I'm just seriously stupid about everything and stuff like that. Then I went ahead and did my internship at IIT Madras. And coincidentally, in third year, I was again looking for internships after my sixth semester and applied through a common selection program, which was, I think, Narayana internship program or something. So that very same professor selected me. He did not know that I was the same person. He selected me, and then I still remember I got an email saying this professor selected you for this internship. I was mind blown at that point, and I was waiting for that first interaction to happen during my, at the beginning of the internship. I still remember I walked into his office and he was like, "Wait, are you the same person whom I interviewed last year? And you pretty much did not answer anything." And I was like, "Yeah." So that 1 year in my third year was a pretty crazy year because I still remember the rejection that I had gotten from that particular professor. And then I worked a lot, and my internship project was also pretty good and stuff like that. And eventually, IIC internship turned out to be really good. I submitted a poster for some conference and stuff like that. Eventually, in my fourth year for my thesis, I again wanted to do another research internship. I was just interested in research. I still remember a lot of people talking about industries and jobs and, when to apply, what to do and stuff like that. But that was a real anxiety situation for me because in fifth semester, that was my breakdown sort of a moment because I was like, no, I want to do GRE, I want to do masters, I'm interested in research, everything's going pretty smooth. But then all my best friends, all my friend circle were like, hey, I'm going for Microsoft internship. Hey, I'm doing, hacker rank. Hey, I'm doing 200 problems. And it was quite... And then people were talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I was like the only compiler person, operating system person interested in Linux, Unix, and stuff like that. So, after a lot of breakdowns in front of my mom, especially, I think that period sort of got over. In my 8th semester, I still went ahead and did my thesis in IIT Hyderabad. And I think that's one of the greatest experiences. PESIT was also amazing. Our HOD was amazing to give me an opportunity like that. And she just said, go ahead and do your project at Hyderabad. Don't come to any classes. After that, I did my master's and at University of Illinois, Urbana, Champaign. Masters in general was quite a tough situation for me because the main anxiety issue that I was facing again and again was the number of students who were attending courses like compilers or operating systems were like 20 or 15. I think one of the courses even got cancelled because there were 5 people. But artificial intelligence and machine learning was like, 400 people, 450 people. There are no more seats left. We need to do another course in the evening or something like that. But I think the main key takeaway from this for you guys as students are there would be a lot of forcing sort of a background or the environment that you are in to sort of force yourself to do something that other people are doing. But then I think at the end of the day, stick to what you are interested in. That was the main learning for me, even during undergrad, even during masters. In terms of, I think, the main issue I was facing was, what about job opportunities? What about that? What about, whether I'll get a job, whether I'll get an internship in compilers? But I think you need to sort of do your research and see where your job opportunities are. But at the end of the day, you do get a lot of jobs, and irrespective of what the field you're in. Definitely for me, machine learning jobs are out there, a lot of jobs, good to do and stuff like that. But then there are no less jobs for systems and compilers and operating system. Yeah, that was, I think, the main learning for me was do what you're interested. Do not go by the pressure.
Thank you, Vandana. That was a key takeaway for all of us. But before we move on to the questions, we would like Vandana to just explain the general process of applying for masters for any of you that are clueless or don't know where to start about it, just the general factors and the points.
Before that, one quick question, Vandana. You've done your internships at wonderful places like IISc and IITs, and you said you mailed the professors and got in touch with them. But how exactly did you get the contact, or how did you find out about these professors at IIScs and IIScs?
Right. So that is definitely something. It's not an easy process. So what I particularly did was, I opened up IIT Madras computer science department and then the list of professors. So weirdly, some of these institutions have just the professor names, so they don't really say which department, which specialization they're particularly working in. So I remember literally copy pasting each and every professor's name in Google to see what area they are specializing in. So that's definitely a brute force approach. Take every professor's name, see what they do, what's their research, just see what they're doing in the last 2 years. That will give you a fair idea of what you will be working, because typically as interns you will be put into projects that the PhD people are working on, and you will typically report to the PhD students, because as an intern, I think most of the professors won't be able to give you as much time as possible. The other important factor that I kept in mind was, it doesn't necessarily matter if the professor is very sort of famous, quote unquote famous, because if the professor has a lot of students, then the probability of the professor interacting with you even slightly will be very less. So for me, it was like, first, let me see what the specialization of each of those professors are in that particular department in the respective college. And after that, try to contact some PhD students. Typically, I would say a lot of PhD students are ready to help students like us who are sort of lost in the middle of nowhere. So contact the PhD students, ask them what they're doing, ask them what's the group like, how do they interact with the professor, how does an intern work there, and stuff like that. So unfortunately, it's, as I said, it's a brute force way, but you really need to target certain institutions. For me, it was IISc, because I stayed in Rajaji Nagar and I wanted to go to IISc, and it was like 10 minutes away and stuff like that. So so get the institutions, try to see what institutions you want to go to, and then try to see what are the professors in the department that will suit your profile and your interests. That's probably the only way to do that.
Right. Thank you so much, Vandana, for answering that. I think you can now answer Harita's question about can you give us a walkthrough the general process of what it is like to apply abroad?
Sure. So I think if you want to do masters, firstly, I would say with or without work experience, that's one of the prime factors that I think people or students have in their mind. They really don't know whether they want to work or not. I think we will be getting into that particular topic quite in depth. So if you don't want to do if you don't want to work after your bachelor's, you might want to take up certain exams. You have to take up certain exams and then prepare properly for submitting the application. So there are two particular exams that you have to take. One is called GRE, and then one is called TOEFL. So GRE basically has two sections. One is called verbal, and then one is math. So I think with respect to the math section, it's mostly high school math, but then associated with speed as well, because it's easy questions, but then you really need to sort of practice and then try to gain as many marks as possible. Verbal, I would say, is just purely English, and it has a couple of sections and stuff like that: reading comprehension, fill in the blanks, and etc. So in TOEFL, there are 4 sections. One is writing, one is speaking, then listening, and then reading comprehension. All these 4 sections typically, TOEFL takes typically about 4 hours to finish the exam. So I think it's quite a strenuous exam to finish. So I would say it's good to sort of take a 4.5 hour. I think with break almost it just goes up till 4.5 hours, 5 hours. So I think I would suggest students to just sit and take an exam just so that you'll be able to take, because first time I went, I was just feeling cold. I was distracted. I was all over the place after 2 hours. So I would suggest students to do that. There are other exams as well. One is IELTS. That's sort of a substitute for TOEFL, but I do think that IELTS is accepted in a lot of universities in Canada, but I would say TOEFL is a better exam to take and submit the scores for universities in US. And then there is, if you really don't want to do, anything related to computer science or electronics or any of these fields, you want to do MBA, then there is GMAT. That is similar to GRE, but then it's I've heard it's way harder with respect to verbal, and it's I think it takes more time to finish the exam. So basically, I think we'll have to target 2 exams, which is GRE and TOEFL. Apart from that, the application also includes 2 other important documents, 3 other important documents actually. One is your resume. You really need to have a strong resume, which is extremely technical based, and basically talks about whatever technical aspect, projects, internships, courses, everything that you have done in the 3 years or 4 years. The second is the statement of purpose. That basically tells you what is the idea behind, or what is the motivation for you to go and do your master's in a particular field or a particular specialization. What got you motivated, and what are you looking forward? What are your dreams? What are your interests and stuff like that? So that's the SOP or statement of purpose. And the third important document is letter of recommendation, which is LOR. That is basically a letter that the professor writes for you. So there might be a couple of questions, depends on what the university's policy is, but that basically talks about how you are as a person, how you are, let's say, how do you handle stress, how do you work as a team, how do you take up projects, and how do you take up a particular problem, and how do you come up with a solution and stuff like that. It's pretty much detailed characteristic question, I would say, questionnaire. So I think these 3 documents with the 2 exams, which is GRE and TOEFL, pretty much make up the entire application process complete.
Right. Thank you so much, Vandana. And we are definitely going to be jumping into the details of each exam and document you mentioned. So now we'll move on to the questions that were sent to us through the Google form. And one of the main questions that we received were regarding students' GPAs. So there are quite a few number of students whose GPA is not reaching the acceptable GPA, so-called. So the students have GPA in the range of 7 to 8, 7.2, 7.8, but they have good and original projects. They have worked in internships and have extracurricular achievements. So how much exactly does one GPA matter while applying for masters abroad? And I think Vandana can take this question.
Sure. So I think the blanket statement for this is GPA is a necessary parameter, but definitely not a sufficient parameter. So if you have a good GPA, which is, let's say, 8.5 above or 9 above, doesn't really guarantee a seat in a good institution or a good university. But excuse me, but having a lower GPA as well does not mean that you won't get any seat in an institution. I think it's a combination of parameters. GPA is definitely important, but along with GPA, your resume is definitely the one that will throw light upon your profile. And then I think from my personal experience, I still remember I went to my professor in master's thesis advisor, and then I asked him, what was the reason you chose my profile? And he legit said he did not know what my GPA was, and he did not know anything about my GRE score or TOEFL score and whatever it was. He just saw my resume and then he saw my SOP and he was happy about it, and then he sort of chose me, and we also had an interview, and then he sort of decided to choose me. So it doesn't really mean GPA is not important, but GPA is important, but it's just a holistic view of your resume, GPA, SOP, and everything. So it's both ways. As I said, it's definitely a necessary condition, but it's definitely not sufficient.
Right. Thank you so much, Vandana. Keertan, would you like to add on to that answer?
Yeah, sure. So, like Vandana said, it is very true that your GPA, certainly having a good GPA opens some doors, and that is also only in some situations. Whereas if your GPA is not up to the mark, there are certainly ways that you can make up for that. And in addition, it's also university dependent. It depends on the program itself. It depends on a lot of things. For instance, I don't know to what extent this is true, but I've heard that, let's say, USC is quite GPA centric, whereas there are other universities which don't focus so much on your GPA, but focus more on the other parts of your application, since that is what they see as evaluating a candidate being a better fit for their program itself.
Right, thank you. And I think we have another question for you. If a person does have a low GPA, what can they do to mask their low GPA? I know things like profile and all matters. So what should stand out in things like this to mask their low GPA?
Right. Okay. So, like Vandana mentioned, the process is quite holistic. I wouldn't say that you are just a number, that number being your GPA to a particular university that you're applying to. It's a lot of things that they look at the same time. So it's going to be, I'm not sure if the GRE still holds, because I've heard that some universities have waived off that requirement of GRE. But for the ones that still require it, and maybe in the future, GRE is certainly one of them. And I would say that TOEFL is not as important. It's more of a cutoff, I would say. Other things like your LOR definitely matter, and this is subjective, to whether your program is more research based or it's more industry based. So there's often the conception that LORs from academics, so your professors, are valued more highly than LORs from, let's say, somebody who you interned under or your manager at work or something like that. So this, I feel, would hold true if for a program which is more research oriented, because you would be working with professors, so they would prefer LORs from academics, I feel. But that being said, I am currently in a program that's completely industry oriented. So it's just set up to help you gain the skills that you need to find a good job and have a good career in the industry itself. So in that sense, I find that there wouldn't be as much of a difference between who your LOR comes from, as long as they have relevant and important things to say about you that speak about your fit for the program itself. And certainly there are other things as well. There are your projects that you can do, and I mean, there are just a variety of projects that you can go and pick up, a variety of skills that you can go and pick up, because with learning being so online, I feel like it's just set off this trend of you can learn from literally anywhere and anywhere in the world. So you could take up courses on Coursera, you could, gain certain skills, with those skills do a project. And I would say that for your masters, it's so much, it's so dependent on your entire career. You're the only person who's responsible for shaping it. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, the workload is just immense. So if you're not passionate, you will get burnt out. So what I would say is don't rush it. And what I mean by that is, if you feel like you've done all of these things, to fix a bad GPA, you've worked as hard as you possibly can, and it's still not up to the mark you feel, and you have done all these courses, tried gaining as much knowledge, projects, all of that you've tried out, why rush it? Why go immediately after your master's? Take a year, sit for your placements, work for a year, and then apply. Because it could just be that you could be doing great work in the industry, or it could be that your job gives you insights into some other industry that you really like, so that helps you shape your documents, your SOPs, and all of that for your master's application itself. I feel like that would be a far better use of your talent, rather than just rushing through the entire process. There's absolutely no rush. I mean, just to give an example, there's somebody in my program who is 46 years old, and he has done 2 master's degrees and 1 PhD, and he's still back for more learning. So this process, it just never stops. Don't rush it. And that's what I would say. At the end of it all, there's a point where you can almost completely mask your GPA with everything else that you have done.
Thank you so much, Keertan. So one can also say that even working for a while before doing your master's is one way of masking a low GPA if you have it. So it helps build your profile.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for answering that. Our next question is specifically related to Ivy League unis and GPA. So if one really wants to get into the top universities of the US, what is the minimum CGPA requirement there? And I think Hemkesh and Keertan can take up this question. We can start off with Hemkesh answering first.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the second part of the question, like what's the minimum CGPA required to get into the university? I want to keep this short answer. If the application, so if you research your universities, right, the Harvards or whatever your Ivy Leagues are, just look up their application process, see if they've actually mentioned a minimum required GPA. If they have mentioned it, then that's the minimum required GPA. So if your GPA is below that, don't even apply for that, because they'll anyway filter your resume. That's just part of the minimum GPA requirement. I think Keertan can answer the other half of the question.
Thanks, Hemkesh. So I just want to get one thing straight, that Ivy League is actually like a sports league, and Ivy League is just used as a blanket term to refer to like a bunch of universities which are considered prestigious. And I would say that the experience is no different at all to any other university at all. As Hemkesh mentioned, they have their own minimum CGPA requirements. And when people say Ivies, Stanford's not an Ivy, MIT is not an Ivy, neither is CMU. But I'm pretty sure that if someone gets an admit, it would be a very hard choice to pick. So I would say that the process is exactly the same. Just the status of it being an Ivy League does not make it any harder or easier to get into. So it's just a conception that's around the world that's not entirely accurate. So yeah, as the previous question's answers goes, it's your GPA is just about as important as it is to any other university's application.
I think Tarun, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. Thanks, Haritha. So yeah, I 100% agree with what Keertan said in terms of Ivy League being sort of like this smoke and mirrors, being sort of like better than other universities. Brown is also Ivy League, and I don't have a degree from there, but I did go there, so that's why I thought I would add to this answer. It makes no difference at all whether your university is Ivy League or not. And I also feel like we'll probably get into this later as part of another question, but it's kind of related to this as well, so I might as well say it now. Is that I feel like in India, when we like pick undergrads and undergrad universities, like where you want to go for undergrad and stuff, we're like so bent on we and our parents and society, I guess, are like so bent on like ranks, like, oh, like RV is a better rank than like BMS or something, so I'm gonna go to RV or something like that. But that doesn't really apply to the US. Like, I feel like, I'm not saying like go to some random college in the middle of the country or something like that, but I'm saying that whether you go to like any of like the known colleges, it doesn't really matter. The rank doesn't really matter. So definitely don't use rank as a way to decide the university that you want to apply to. And yeah, definitely not the IV status. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Tarun. I think Vandana wants to add on to this answer, and then after Vandana, Keertan again.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what Tarun said. So, if it's, let's say, let's say you have about 3 or 4 universities that you want to go to, definitely, and if they're all something similar, and not really random versus the best college, I mean, rank one college, not like that. So if all the 3, 4 universities are similar and one is, an Ivy League college, I think for me, as far as I know, it's better to go for the college that most suits your interests and background, because I do remember while applying, I think Princeton University did not have computer science, and then the courses, I mean, it's okay to not have computer science as a degree, but then the closest degree that I wanted to apply to also did not have a lot of systems courses, and me being from a systems background, I was not okay to go there. I think there were 1 or 2 courses, but then that was it. So I think really depends on the courses and what you really want to get from the master's program.
Right. Thank you so much, Vandana and Keertan.
Yeah, so just to add on to this once more, there are also some courses which are great, wonderful, at some universities whose rank would actually surprise you. You would say, "Wow, this can't be this low," or you wouldn't. For instance, maybe you wouldn't think of Yale for computer science, right? Or even for that matter, probably something like let's say Harvard. So there are certain schools that are wonderful for certain fields of study, and certain other universities which are not as well known, which have wonderful programs as well. So I would say that the ranking lists should be more or less taken with a pinch of salt. I find it much better to probably talk to somebody who's there, and in addition, do your own research. That's very, very important while applying. Make sure that you go on to the university's website. They have everything, almost everything detailed out, the courses that you would be taking and what the courses are geared towards you learning and what the objectives are. All of that is listed out. See if it matches what you do want, right? And adding on to what Tarun said, I feel like this is something that can't be stressed enough. You would go to one of these universities. I'm sure all of you all will get into great ones, and you will go there, and then you'll be like, "Oh my God, there are people from IITs, and there are people from BITS, and there are people from places in undergrad that I didn't get into, and they're doing the exact same thing as I am." And then you interact with them, and then you realize that they're not this wild creature like from your dreams who just magically just knows everything. They're just like you in every sense of the word. So in that sense, it's very motivating to come here. And that's when I felt like I realized that everything that I went through in PES, it was not all waste. And I can't speak for the other courses, but I can speak for the computer science course. Being a 2020 graduate, I can say that the course is very well updated. It's very relevant to where the industry is headed. It's very future proof in that sense, since it's being revised so often. Even when I graduated, I was told that I had ML in my 6th semester, and I heard that it's going to be moved earlier in the pipeline. So that way the syllabus is great. And at the same time, I would say that teaching is one of the hardest jobs that there is. So the professors out there, I genuinely believe that they are doing the best that they can. If you do not find it engaging, give that subject a shot. Go out and put in the effort to learn it yourself. And you would find that that actually helps you in this entire search of finding out what you like. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add on. It doesn't really fit in with like any other questions answered, but I thought it was relevant to bring it up here.
Right, thank you so much. And I have one question again related to GPA, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're applying during our 4th year, that means if we want to do masters directly after finishing our BTech, it's the first 6 semesters GPA only that counts while applying. Am I right? I think Keertan can answer this.
Yep, that is. And
Right.
mine was pretty low for the first 6 sems. Yeah, I mean it got higher after when you added up the 8, but yeah, 6.
Cool. And to continue with everyone's answers, I think one of the main questions, as since we spoke about universities, one of the main questions is how do we actually go about the process of shortlisting universities, and how do we get started with the process, and what are the things one should look into while shortlisting universities. So I think everyone can answer this question about how they got about shortlisting it. I think we can start with Vandana answering the question first.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. I was sort of all over the place. I got a list of universities that usually people apply to, and then top 10, top 15, and whatever. So as I mentioned before, Princeton was there in my list of colleges, and I think the number of colleges easily went up to 30 or 35, and I was all over the place. And then there are these sort of universities that you really want to apply, and it's ambitious. And then you also want to apply to safer universities. And the weird thing is, as soon as you reach the deadline for your application process, you start feeling more and more pressurized, and you suddenly start feeling low. I started feeling low, and I was like, I need to apply for more safer colleges. Like, I don't mind. I need to get in somewhere, so I'm going to apply for random colleges. So it's definitely a hard process to select universities for sure. But I think from my background, I was very clear that I didn't want to go to a university just for the brand value, because for me that was not a choice, because I was interested in compilers, I was just interested in systems. So I looked up Harvard, I looked up Princeton. I was like, there were no courses, or rather very less courses, and that was not motivating for me. So try to eliminate universities that definitely don't sort of have courses or don't match your interests and the specialization that you want to be doing, I think. And then the second and the most important thing that people might not be aware of is the mistake that I did was computer science is the only department that I want to apply to. That's not true. So for example, what I learned from my friends was in CMU, there is this computer science department, but then there are like 7 or 8 sub departments that are all a part of computer science. And weirdly, I think MS CS program is extremely hard to get into, and there are these other programs that are relatively easier to get into. So I think probably just keeping in mind that, oh, I want to do MS in CS is not a great choice. You might want to see in each university that you're applying to, what are the other related programs, related courses. Because I heard in CMU that most of the sub departments, all of them can choose any of the combination of the courses from computer science. I think there is a machine learning specific course. I mean, you can't really choose, I think, computer architecture course or something. It's too different, but it does give you a lot of flexibility to choose. So I think don't really stick to computer science, masters in computer science. That was something that I was not aware of. And then the third important thing that I learned later was there are a lot of opportunities for TAs and RAs, which is teaching assistant or research assistant. So that I was not aware of. So let's say that, for example, in UIUC, if you come as a master's student, you can email professors beforehand to say you are interested in doing teaching, or you are interested in taking up a research project, or you're just interested in doing a normal project. It can be an industry oriented project as well. So if you do that, a lot of professors give you teaching assistantship and research assistantship, and because of that you will be earning stipend and stuff like that, and your financial situation becomes very comfortable if you are not in a good financial position. So keep those things in mind as well. There are a lot of TA and RA opportunities, so that definitely does give a slight edge to choose that particular university.
Thank you so much, Vandana. I think, Tarun, you would like to add on to that answer about shortlisting university.
Yeah, Vandana basically covered almost everything that I wanted to say as well. It was similar for me. This was the first time when I applied for masters, like the 12 universities I was telling you about, which I got rejected from all of them. But I was also kind of in a similar position, like trying to get some which I perceived would be a safe option, and some which I perceived would be like more harder to get, and do some sort of like 50-50 or something between the two. And I mean, there's definitely things that I learned after this process. One of the big things being this RA-ship and TA-ship that Vandana was talking about, which I think is very important for people to know, that there's some universities like Georgia Tech and UMass Amherst, where especially at Georgia Tech, it's like pretty common for students to get a TA-ship. And if you get a TA-ship, that basically means that you don't have to pay the tuition fees, and you get paid for that one semester, however long you're doing the TA-ship. So definitely consider those, do your research about which universities have these options. I was going to say something else too.
I think I can add a point. In the meantime, you can. So I think one of the other important points, apart from TA and RA, is the scholarships. I was, I think, a little bit dumb. I did not know that Masters in CS program in UIUC offers full scholarship. So I got in, and then I realized, and I was like, oh man, that's amazing. So there are a lot of universities. I'm aware of UIUC. I'm aware of Georgia Tech. I think after first semester, you do get 100% scholarship if you have an RA or a TA. Again, that's a little bit different. It's based on GPA. They select based on GPA and stuff like that. It's still possible to get. So there are universities that give you 100% scholarship. These are some of the universities that I listed. So you might want to look into that as well, because that's something that I was not aware of. And it definitely helps to choose a particular university in the same ranking or similar ranked universities.
Right. Tarun.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was something that Vandana already mentioned, but I just wanted to emphasize it, that it just happens to be that there's some programs that are just extremely hard to get into. I think University of Texas, Austin is one such program. So I think a good metric is to, like, at least a decent metric is to use the number of like alumni or like PESIT students that have got into a certain university. If like no one has got into a certain university, you can still apply, you can still try your luck, but it's more likely than not that the admissions in that is just harder. And you definitely want to take all these factors into account. I guess if you're doing a master's, you don't really need to take location into account that much, because you're only there for like a 1.5 to 2 years. Probably don't want to be spending a lot of money living in a super expensive place, but I guess it doesn't really matter that much because it's a short amount of time. It matters more for the PhD, but we can get into that later. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Hemkesh, would you like to add on to his answer?
Yeah. Tarun was right about the alumni part as well. while choosing your university, you need to actually LinkedIn has a feature which lets you know the alumni where they work currently. So it's a good way to check if those alumni are actually working in a job kind of jobs you would like to work after your graduation. And also the second part of that is the bigger the alumni network is, uh, later you can contact them after your graduation, get their referrals, and the more number of alumni in the industry you want to work in, the better it is. So check on the alumni network as well. That's one factor to choose, one factor to weigh in while choosing universities. The second thing, it's a small point about not about what to choose and why, but when to choose the universities as well. This is mistake I made during my GRE and TOEFL. It's better to, I feel it's better to choose your universities before you take your GRE or TOEFL. One, the monetary aspect. GRE lets you send 5 free score reports as soon as you take your exam. So even if you're not decided the whole university list, it's at least good to uh, choose a bit of universities before you take your GRE and TOEFL, so because you can send the free reports as soon as the exam is done. Otherwise, if you don't choose universities, you have to pay for like 30 or 27 bucks for each score report you send to university after the exam. So in the monetary aspect, that's there. And the second is just a psychological thing. Having a fixed goal of the universities you have in mind, it will make your GRE preparation and TOEFL preparation a bit easier. You have something tangible or physical to work towards, rather than I'll just take my GRE and then later decide the universities and let's see how it goes then. Those are the 2 points I wanted to add.
Thank you so much, Hemkesh. And I think Keertan can wrap up this question with his experience about shortlisting universities.
Sure. So, like Hemkesh, Vandana, and Tarun mentioned, I mean, they've covered pretty much everything there is to, I think, know. So I'll just talk about my experience. So as they mentioned, I just went on to the university's website. The only time I think I used a rank list was to get university names itself. Yeah. So, and then I would spend a good amount of time seeing what the program and what programs they have and what each program entails and if I'm interested or not. So I feel like having a clear goal about where you want to end up after your master's as well, master's or PhD, having a clear goal as to where you want to end up, that could influence your decision as well. Because for me, I knew that I was not going to pursue a PhD. I may still change my mind, but at this when I was thinking about it, I was quite sure that a PhD was not what I wanted, and also I wanted something that was industry oriented. So in that sense, it cut down the number of programs that I was applying to, and at the same time, it also allowed me to tweak my SOPs in order to match what they were looking for. And also one more thing I wanted to mention. So Tarun mentioned that I guess location is not as important. And I feel like I'm doing the complete opposite. And a big part of the reason why I decided on Columbia itself was the fact that it is in New York. And I always had this fascination with finance itself. So I want to explore opportunities in like the intersection of finance and data science. So that could influence your decision. And I feel like, at least for me, it is helpful being here because there are so many financial firms and places and people to whom I can connect, maybe easier than if I was somewhere else and get to meet them as well. So yeah, all of these are just little things that could help you, that could guide you as to which universities to shortlist and pick.
Okay, thank you, Keertan. That was a lot of information, so I'm just going to just quickly summarize the key takeaways. So, firstly, have a clear goal and reason for the programs that you are choosing, and make sure you know what your post-program goals are. There were also mentions about how you should research the university websites thoroughly and make sure you're not misinformed about anything else. Do remember that there are possibilities of scholarships and TA and RA possibilities in many universities. And one other point is that program is much more important than ranking. It should fit for you. It shouldn't just be ranked on top of some random list. Even if you have shortlisted a university, check all the programs that are available and make sure that there is no program in the university that is more suitable for you and you just missed it because you didn't check the university website, right? And the last one being, make sure you're able to reach out to PES or your college alumni. Make sure that you're connected to them, and that kind of network pays off in the long run. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Another highly asked question was about work experience. Is it important to have work experience before applying, or how do you decide if you want to work first or not? Is it better to go with or without work experience? So maybe you can start with Vandana.
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting question because I think all my anxiety was because of this particular situation. I think I want to start answering this question by saying it's okay if you haven't decided what you are really interested in. You don't know what you want to do even in third year, sort of, or even in let's say fourth year, because I have had friends who used to like designing, who also used to do machine learning, who just took up everything in a full stack development, like a project, just do web stuff, everything in computer science. They just had this knack of doing everything. And they were sort of interested in everything. So it's okay to be in that space. And if you're in that space and you really don't know what you want to do, then I think a better choice for you to do is to take that 1 year break after bachelor's and sort of try to focus on something specific that you are interested in, take up courses or work with someone in a good institution. There are a lot of opportunities as project assistants in IIC, a lot of good institutions. Even for that matter, even PESIT has a lot of project assistantship. So I would say it's good to go into doing all these project assistant or research assistantship if you're not really clear about any course that you want to do or any specialization that you're interested in. The other aspect, let's say you're interested in a particular specialization, let's say machine learning. And then there are two things that could happen. One is, you're interested in machine learning, but then you're not very confident of going into master's. You're just having this anxiety that you're not good enough to go into a master's program. So in that case, again, if you're really not confident about yourself, then I would say it's completely okay to just take a step back and have that 1 year of experience to gain confidence, and then go back and do masters, because I mean, people do apply for masters, and I have seen a lot of people who sort of get lost and they're really not sure what they're doing in masters. So just not just the application, but then just the overall program also needs the confidence to do what you want to do. So if you're not confident, I think it's also okay to go do your work, just manage your time, see what you're interested in. I think it gives you about 7-8 months, and if you want to apply immediately, and then if not, just take again another year. So it's completely okay. The other important thing that I want to mention is, well, for me, I had a scholarship, so I wasn't in that category. But then if let's say you are interested in a particular course, you know what you want to do, you're super confident about it and stuff like that. And the only reason that you don't want to do master's right after bachelor's is because of the financial pressure that you're having. I think I have seen a lot of friends who have taken up loans from banks in India, and then because there are great opportunities to pay them off, either you get a good job or you you start earning really well, it is completely okay to go ahead, take a loan from India, and then go ahead and do your masters, because there are good opportunities if you can grab those opportunities well. So I think those are the 3 points I wanted to cover on this.
Thank you, Vandana. Hemkesh, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, great points, Vandana. One of my points was also similar to yours, saying and also Keertan mentioned this previously in the CGPA questions as well. Just go ahead for the first job. See if you actually like the job or not. I feel the answer to this question is use your master's degree to either decide to switch a career, probably join the data science job or something, and then you decide it's not right for you, then you can do your master's degree in a different field, what you want to pursue in, and go ahead with that. Or if you find and like the job, you can continue working in that job. The second thing I wanted to mention was the work experience is a two-edged sword. Now, the points I'm going to say now might be controversial, but on one hand, in USA, at least in my experience of talking to recruiters, going to career fairs, etc., experience in India is not considered as experience in USA. So when you join as a experienced person and you do masters and you look for your first job, you are put in the same batch as the other master students and the new grads in that, and you get the same first job, new grad. This I spoke to a couple of recruiters in Intuit, some big companies as well, because they don't send the recruiters to hire experienced candidates from here. So you're put in the same batch as the new grad people. So in a way, work experience won't help in that. On the other side of the sword is if you have work experience on your resume, it will make you stand out of the crowd in all these career fairs while talking to recruiters, etc. So I put the question back to the question itself. I put the question back to the person asking. Decide whether are you good at marketing yourself. Will that work experience really help, and will you be able to market yourself well to career fairs and recruiters when you come to do your masters? And that's basically could be your answer to your question. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Hamcash. I think it answered the question pretty well. A follow-up or related question with that was maybe Keertan or Hamcash can answer this. Do you have to, if you're confused, would your suggestion be to sit through PES placements and even if you are applying directly, because people do find it more comforting to have backup options? Maybe Keertan can go first.
So my advice is very straightforward. Sit for your placements. It does not matter. One acts as a safety net for the other. If your master's plan does not go through this year, you're not stuck. You'll at least have a job. If your job doesn't work out, as it happened to me, your master's plan goes through, then you don't have an issue at all. And in some sense, it's probably the first time that you're ever giving an interview. So in that sense, you don't want to miss out on the experience itself. And you don't want your master's interviews to be your first ever interviews. So even if you are hell-bent on going for your master's, sit for your placements, use this as trial round. Let's see what comes out of it.
Okay, perfect. The next question is about internships. Is it important / necessary to have an internship before applying? Keertan?
So I would say that a relevant internship certainly helps, because at least in India, the interviews are more, do you know this? Whereas the interviews, at least here from my limited experience, it's more towards how well do you fit this role. So people are looking to gauge, recruiters are looking to gauge how well your experiences translate to how well you can perform your job function if hired. So if it is a relevant internship, for sure it'll help. It also looks great on your resume, but I would also say that don't fill up your resume with internships that are not relevant simply for the sake of filling up your internship, for filling up your resume.
Okay. an added question, maybe Vandana and Hemkesh can answer this and then make any further points that they want to. In terms of internships has already been answered, but in terms of research papers or projects, what would be the minimum threshold that you would say is required or suggested?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because there is no a blanket statement that research experience is important or research paper is important as such, because it really depends on the university. So for a university like UIUC, which is, I mean, it's a good combination of research and industry oriented, I would say, but I think it would still be very good, definitely a cherry on the icing if you have some research experience. I think after being a master's student at UIUC and after going through the process, in detail, the way I was selected was purely based on my research background, and I was given a research assistantship. So if you're really looking forward to get a research assistantship, or you really are not sure whether you want to stop at masters, you want to do PhD or something like that, or you want to do thesis, because there are two separate programs that you uniquely find in most of the colleges, which is one is thesis based program and one is a non-thesis based program. So if you're opting for a thesis based program, definitely having some sort of a research experience helps. But a research paper, for my field definitely was not a requirement, because I was still writing my paper. So in my SOP, I just said a paper in progress. And even in my resume, I mentioned that I was working on this paper, but it was not really published. Well, fun fact is the paper never came out. So it's okay. I mean, it's not really like, you have to get the paper or not. No, if you're doing some sort of a research project, you can still mention that. It's definitely going to give you a boost for colleges that are offering research assistantship and you are wanting to do some sort of a thesis based masters. But for colleges like let's say USC, which is more industry oriented, I do not think a research experience per se is required, but I think just good internships and good projects definitely would be sufficient for that, for such colleges.
Okay.
I think another added point that I wanted to do for the previous question, regarding whether you want to do placements at the same time apply for masters, just a FYI, it's extremely hard to sit for placements and apply for masters. That June to October is the critical time for you to take up your GRE exam, and let's say you don't get a good score. I got, I think, 310 or something, and I was feeling cold somehow in the examination, and I just blanked out, and my first GRE exam was super bad. So I had to take up the second exam, and there's so much of stress. You really need to work on your SOPs and get your applications in. It's not an easy process. At the same time, sitting for placements is going to demotivate you if you don't really get anything and pass through the different rounds. I remember sitting for, I think, Microsoft coding round, and then it was at 5 p.m. in the evening. We all went, and it was like a 2-hour process, and when I came back it was 9 p.m. and it was exhausting, and that's not going to be a good situation for you. If you're trying for masters and placements and getting exhausted, because the placements don't really happen, at least in our batch, did not really happen during the college hours. It was mostly going to be, after college hours, and you have to stay back. So how are you going to prepare for GRE exam if you're approaching the deadline? So if you're very planned out, like let's say you prepare your GRE, you give your GRE score, it's all good before June, July. All you have to do is to just write your SOP and stuff like that. Then sure, go ahead. If you're not confident, go ahead, sit for placements, because just sitting for placements doesn't help. You really need to practice coding, and that coding is competitive coding. So you just can't randomly crack it. You need some experience in algorithms, data structures, and stuff like that. So it's going to be super hard if you just crunch everything from July to October and be like, oh, I'm going to do everything. That's a super hard situation. So I would say try to sort out the situation. Don't come under the pressure that other people are going for industry, other people are trying to go for placements, so I also want to do placements. But I mean, if you're not confident and if you have the ability to do both of them, sure. But I wasn't able to do it, so I stuck with my master's plan and I completely ditched the placement idea, and I just focused on my master's. So I think that is something you guys have to keep in mind, the anxiety and the stress that you want to take up if you're doing both.
Yeah, Vandana, great point you made. It's really hard. Even I remember at my time, it's really hard to do both masters applications and taking GRE and TOEFL along with the placements at the same time. As you rightly pointed, if you're done with all the exams before the placement season, I would actually uh, suggest you actually uh, prepare for placements. You go ahead with the coding interviews because, as I think Tarun or Keertan mentioned before, you're going to need that experience for masters as well. If you're looking for a job after getting into masters, you'll be applying for internships as early as August of fall 2022. So you'll be having interviews and online coding challenges immediately as soon as you land to USA. So it's always good to have coding experience and the placement preparation handy. As one of the placement prep tales in the last video, coding is a habit that needs to be developed over time and not you crunch in time and do it, master it in a short time and you're done with it. I would say coding should be a habit and start. Even today is good enough. Start now and do at least one coding question per day, and not cram in everything at one point during placement season or when you're applying for internships or when you come to do your masters. So this advice is only for people who look for jobs or internships after coming from masters and not research internships. Also, even if you're going for ML or data science kind of internships, even they're going to ask the lead code question. So as Vandana said, do the placement preparation once you're done with all the exams and GRE, TOEFL, etc.
Right. Thank you so much, Hemkesh. I think we can move on to the next question, which we got is what exactly is a good profile? I think Keertan can answer this question after, and then Vandana can add to that.
So it was something that was alluded to a lot by Vandana and as well as Tarun and Hemkesh, that it's quite the entire package that is looked at as a whole. That includes your GPA, that includes your projects, that includes your research, that includes your internships. If you decide to work, it includes that. It includes your SOPs and your letter of recommendations as well. As a general strategy, of course, try to keep everything as high as possible, but that's not realistic. Nobody is going to have a perfect profile. But the key takeaway, I think, for me was the fact that if one thing is not perfect, another thing can make up for it and kind of cover it. And also, I think if you guys are at the point where you do have some amount of time, do research anyway. If you're not able to publish a research paper, list it as a project. Pro tip.
Thank you. Vandana, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think Keertan covered everything, but one point is try to present as well as possible. Just writing your SOP or resume or LOR, just present it as good as possible. I think the key takeaway for a profile is it's okay if you have done 2 projects, it's okay if you have done just one good project, but the way you explain it and you put it out on your resume or SOP does really matter. So just work on your entire profile and be true to what you have done. I think that's going to be okay.
Right, thank you. And I think, Vandana, you can answer this question as well, which is how important are extracurricular and other non-academic achievements, and what are some additional things universities do look at apart from your academics?
Okay, so I think I might be wrong in this, but I'm still going to put this across. I think the reason people, universities look for extracurricular activities is only to see whether you can gel well in this different society and different culture. So it's completely different in Indian education and US education. So for example, so I think the only reason they look at extracurricular activities is just to see whether you'll be able to handle a different environment, and if you're geared up for that. But personally, other than some of the hobbies, the hobbies I had was, like playing keyboard and stuff like that. I really did not do any volunteering activities or anything like that I used to hear, and I was super tensed about. I was like, oh, I don't have any volunteering activity. It's okay. It's completely fine. Other than the basic hobbies you have, if you just mention that, I think that is sufficient, because it's just to tell them that you do something other than just studying, and you will be able to gel well in this new environment, and you will be able to take up these tasks and challenges and don't really collapse under pressure.
Right, thank you. And one quick follow-up question is, someone had asked in the live chat, is it worth going to profile building classes?
I think it is. Depends on what profile building classes you're going to. If you have absolutely no idea of what a profile looks like, and you haven't really seen any of your seniors' profiles, and well, some seniors are not ready to share and stuff like that, and you're really lost and you have no help, it's absolutely okay to go to a profile building class and see what is the basic strategy, and what's the basic step that you need to start with in order to build your profile or write your profile. I think PESIT also had a couple of resume building side classes or something like that. So I remember attending one of them, and then I felt that, okay, fine, I'm in a good position to sort of go ahead and do it myself. So I think if you have no idea about it, it's good to go and go for a profile building class. Probably I would put it as profile writing. So just to start with how you want to structure your profile, what things do you want to put in SOP, what things do you want to put in resume, how do you write an LOR. It's definitely a good first step, I would say.
Right, thank you so much, Vandana. And one quick question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of applying early? I think Keertan can first take up this question.
Sure. So by early, I'm assuming you mean something like much before the deadline, not much after the bachelor's degree, right?
Yeah, like early but still within the deadline. Early and later, but within the deadline.
So the advantages of applying early, I would say, are some universities actually have like a first priority deadline and a second priority deadline. I think USC also had it, if I'm not wrong. In addition, there are loads of universities, like Tarun mentioned, that give out admissions on a rolling basis. So Northeastern used to do this. So I know somebody who, while I was still writing my SOP, he had already gotten his admit, because the way it works is your application comes in and they review it immediately. They don't wait for like the deadline. They have like a hard deadline by which all applications need to arrive. But if you send it before, they'll review it earlier and also give you a decision possibly earlier than the deadline itself. So that is one advantage of applying early that I can think of. In some sense, and another thing is you're giving, it's not as stressful. Like you're not doing cramming work into the last parts of the last few days. The disadvantages, I would say, is maybe you're working on a project, maybe you're working on something that like you really like, and it's not done in time. Do you put that on your resume as, you wouldn't be able to put that on your resume as completed, right? You wouldn't be able to present the entire results of it. This could apply to research papers, this could apply to projects. It could also apply to your GPA. Maybe you decided that, hey, this sem is when I'm going to fix it, but you don't have time for this sem to end. And that little difference that you want to make to your overall CGPA, maybe that's like one thing that that you can't really, is a disadvantage, I would say. So yeah.
Right, thank you, Keertan. And I think the next question we have in mind is, and something everyone is pretty much confused about, is what exactly is the timeline to go about all this? When is one supposed to start preparing for these exams? When is one supposed to give all these exams? So could you maybe explain with an example the timeline of how one should go about the whole process? And I think Hemkesh can take up this question first.
Yeah. A great way to do this is probably give it an example of probably what I did myself. So I applied for fall 18 for the fall 18 application. It was August 2018. The applications. So let's work backwards. The applications were due around the December of 2017. So we have to work backwards from there. All the exams, all the TOEFL exam, GRE, SOP, LOR, resume, etc. What I did was, if in the December of my seventh sem, I had to apply everywhere. I took up all the exams like GRE in August 2017 and TOEFL in September 2017. That you need to also provide a buffer of some time because some people do retake GRE, so you might need to provide some time of buffer between different exams so that you can retake GRE if needed, if you get a bad score or something. So allow for that kind of a buffer. And as I said previously, it's good to choose the universities prior to writing your GRE or TOEFL. It's important because, as I said, monetary purposes, you can send free reports and 4 free to GRE and 4 free reports to TOEFL. And also, as I said, it will be a good psychological. It's like having a goal when you're studying GRE or TOEFL. You have those universities in mind. So that's my example of a timeline. So where I started taking August, and when did I prepare for GRE? I took around 3 or 4 months to prepare GRE. I started preparing for around 6th semester, but as I said before, I couldn't get any momentum. So what I did was I took classes during my summer after my 6th semester, and that forced me to take classes and study for it. And it took 3 to 4 months to study GRE. Preparing for TOEFL was pretty straightforward after taking GRE. It's basically they're just checking if you know to read English, if you know to write, speak, or listen English, and that was pretty simple. It was like a 1 month, 1.5 month effort from my side. Uh, and after that, the most important part is the SOP and LORs. LORs basically, as I think Tarun mentioned, the last minute LORs. Contact professors in advance, way months before the application deadline, not 1 month or 1 week before the deadline. Tell them that you're applying for this university, XXX university. Give them list of universities. Tell them to expect an email from those universities to upload an LOR. You won't be doing that process yourself. The professor will be uploading the LOR. And SOP as well. SOP doesn't come up in one day that you just come up with the document, you finish it, and you submit it. That is a process that refines over time as well. That you give that a lot of time, 3 to 4 months, I would say. Get it reviewed by many people, professors, other seniors, people in your own batch. Refine the story as in go. It's just not one story and you're done with the document. Probably we have a question further about building SOPs, which I will cover in detail later. But SOP also needs a bit of time, which is like 3 to 4 months, and it needs to be refined. And the resume as well. Resume needs to be built. You need to follow the format, mention all your, and as I said, the resume has the 6th semester. So if you're applying for a master's immediately after your graduation, you'll have your 6th semester GPA and all your internships and accolades before that. So that was my timeline. Any questions on my timeline or anything I need to expand on?
Haritha, do you have any follow-up questions to that?
No, not as of now. We'll just go through a quick summary of all the 4 parts of the application and come back to you. Okay. So talking about any higher studies application, we have GRE, TOEFL, your statement of purpose, and your letters of recommendation. So maybe Vandana, you can just quickly summarize all of them in terms of how they're done and their order, and we can take up follow-up points from all the panelists.
Sure. So let me start with the preparation for GRE. I think a lot of people have different ways to prepare. So I'm just going to talk about how I started doing it. Firstly, well, this is my personal experience. I paid a ton of money, a chunk of money to, I think, Princeton course or something. And then I attended, I think, 2 classes and I left it. So it was, I mean, they actually sit and teach you how to add numbers, but that was not good for me. So, but that class was good. Only the first class was good, but because they just told you, here is a verbal section, here is a math section, and in verbal you have different components, and then you really need to work on these things. And math is going to be some sort of high school level difficulty and stuff like that. I didn't even know about there was verbal and math, so I just went with like no knowledge before, prior knowledge. So I mean, actually there was no use of such classes given the amount of internet information we have. So what I started with for GRE is I took Manhattan books, and I also, I think, got this subscription for Magoosh Verbal and Math. So I completed all the math questions in Magoosh. And I think, except for the very hard questions, I sort of completed most of the questions in Verbal as well. So for me, Magoosh online subscription definitely helped me to prepare for verbal, specifically because the verbal that I found in Magoosh was quite similar to what I got in GRE. And definitely the ETS books help. You need to really go through all the 4 question papers that are available. And then Manhattan's verbal was sort of good, but a little bit different from what I faced in GRE, I feel. So after going through all these different books and stuff like that, for me, Magoosh worked and ETS books worked. But I would say the key takeaway from these things are there are tons of books available. But somehow for me, the questions from those different books were sort of not really matching or same difficulty level or whatever kind of questions with respect to what I got in GRE exam. So I would say this is a crazy thing that I thought it's a good tip for people who are going to write GRE. Just go ahead one day, just take a GRE exam. I mean, if you're okay to just go take a GRE exam, just go take a GRE exam. It's or you don't even have to go physically take a GRE exam, just take up the GRE practice ETS test on the very first day of your practicing GRE. So what that does is you will sort of realize what are the components that you want to work on and what are the areas that you're strong. So that basically helps you decide what are the resources that you want to use. So for example, I was really bad at some of the sections in verbal, and I did not even know that. I was focusing on sections that I was already strong. I was focusing on math because I wanted to get like full score and stuff, and I was already good at that, and I should have focused on verbal before. So you really need to know what are your weaknesses and strengths before you actually start preparing, and that's really a great way to go about starting your GRE preparation. And after that, sort of time yourself, take tests every sort of 2 weeks or 3 weeks after you're confident and stuff like that. So that definitely helps you sort of keep up the expectation that you have and sort of keep working on the things that you have to work on. Another important tip that really helped me was really bug everyone in your family. So it's not easy to learn, a couple of hundreds of words or 200 words or something like that. It's not easy. That doesn't happen in a day. So just go to your mom, just tell her to ask 10 questions from the book every single day, 10 verbals or something like that. Just tell them, just ask me 10 words. So this sort of helps you to sort of keep brushing up those verbal words again and again, and and you won't really get bored while studying. So a good interaction, you will also have a good interaction with everyone in your family, and everyone knows what you're studying and stuff like that. So it's actually a great fun to study. So I used to go to my mom every single day and be like, ask me 100 words. And she was sort of irritated, but she was fine with it at the end of the day. So she was like asking me verbal words, and I was trying to give the meaning and vice versa and stuff like that. So it's fun way to learn GRE, because it can be a little bit taxing and boring. And there are instances where you can give up and say, I'm not good at this and I don't want to do masters. So don't do that. Try to make it more fun. For the second thing, for TOEFL, one thing that really helped me were these videos called Noteful videos on YouTube. They have a specific sectional videos, reading comprehension, speaking, listening, and I took up a couple of tests, and it was super easy. So as I think someone pointed out earlier, TOEFL is not really important. It probably takes like 1 or 2 weeks if you have a GRE preparation. I mean, typically people say 2 days are good, but 1 week or 2 weeks are more than enough for TOEFL preparation if you have done your GRE preparation before. Coming up to letter of recommendation. So I personally think like letter of recommendation is a document that basically tells you how you are as a person. It's basically mostly going to be personal characteristics in a working environment. So try to approach professors who know you really well. It's okay if the professor does not have, some sort of a crazy name or something like that. It's okay. Don't get stressed out about it. If you have a good professor from a good institution and who has like a great name and stuff like that, well, that's amazing. Sure, go ahead. But if there are no professors like that you have worked with, and you have professors who are in your college just like teaching you courses and stuff, it's great. It's fine, because at the end of the day, I think personally a professor who does not have like too much of a name attached with, but that professor knows you really well, like you have worked with that professor for a project, and he knows you in and out, and he really knows your background and everything. It's a better professor than someone who just has a brand value and a name, but who doesn't know you at all. I would say try to approach professors who know you well, because that definitely gives a boost to select, because LOR is going to be quite important document, because that's going to tell you how you are as a person, and that's what universities are going to be looking at. So if you have lesser professors, I think just try bugging them. I think one of my professors is like, I'll give you 3 LORs. I'm like, no way. And I made him give 10 LORs at the end of the day. Professors are chill. It's okay. Just go ahead and keep bugging them, saying, no, I don't have any other professors. You're my best professor, blah, blah, blah. You're my favorite professors. They'll just come back and give you LORs for that. So it's fine to have less professors. If you have just 3, just keep bugging them to just give them LORs. They will come around. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. And the fourth document, that is the second document, is the SOP, the statement of purpose. I think this is something that people have to work on very, very strongly, because that basically tells you why exactly did you choose this particular university? Why exactly did you choose this particular specialization? What is your background? What motivated you to take up this particular course? And how have you been, taking up projects? What influenced you, and what are the challenges that you faced in the journey, and what are the results? How did you overcome these challenges? So all of these sort of build your SOP, and this will give you a holistic view of who you are as a person. So a lot of people make this mistake. They put a lot of a lot of technical stuff into SOP and make it very similar to resume. And that's something that I did. It was definitely a mistake, because then there is no difference between resume and SOP. To make it really stand out, I mean, put things like, I did this research paper and this was the motivation and stuff like that. Try to give it a contextual background to a particular project you took up. It need not be everything super technical. All the projects that you have done has to go into SOP. No, just take the creamier projects that you think are going to be impactful for a professor who's looking at it, or a university who's looking at it. Try to explain them better as to why you did it, what were the challenges, how you overcome those, and what was the result. That is going to be a little more impactful for your SOP, and put all the technical chunks in your resume. So I think that is going to be a summary of all these 4 things.
Thank you, Vandana. Now moving on to Tarun.
Thanks. Yeah, I know we're running out of time, so I'm probably just gonna give a summary and then just say my final statements, I guess. So yeah, I just wanted to give a quick summary, quite similar to Vandana's. I started preparing for GRE around pretty late, I think September or October, and pretty much just use the Magoosh. They have an online paid thing that was super useful, because they have video answers to every question and stuff. And I feel this is usually the case for most Indians, given the rigor, I guess, of math in our school education, that the math part we don't find too hard, but the verbal part we find hard, super hard. And that was at least the case for me. And I used the Magoosh thing for both math and verbal, and I also used this these postcard word they have just the words on cards. I forgot what it's called. I'm blanking on the name, but you can get an app on your phone, and I used to just look at that when I was on the bus home and stuff like that. But mainly the Magoosh thing. I think the Magoosh thing is super useful. TOEFL, as Vandana said, is super easy. Took 3 days to prepare, just YouTube videos. Especially if you're preparing for GRE, you don't need to worry about TOEFL preparation. And SOPs are pretty hard. I had to write an SOP 2 times because I went through the admission cycle 2 times, and both times were pretty hard. I would say it's advantageous to get the SOP looked at by many people. Try to get it looked at by some of the professors at PESIT, or if you've done an internship somewhere else, get their feedback on it. And yeah, definitely don't start off with super cringy statements I always wanted to do computer science since I was a kid, and since I saw a computer, and all those statements don't work anymore. They're everyone uses that kind of stuff. I would say just get to the point, talk about yourself, talk about why you want to do this, talk about why you want to go to that college and what you've done so far and your research. And LORs is also kind of tricky because, as you can imagine, a lot of people are going to be asking, a lot of people are going to be applying, and a lot of people are going to be asking the same professors to give them an LOR. So a lot of the times, if you ask them late, the professor is just going to be I cannot give you an LOR because I'm already giving it to 10 students. And a lot of the time, they will ask you to write the LOR, which is super weird. That's not the way it's supposed to be done, and but that's the way it works in India and in PESIT, I guess. They will ask you to write up an LOR, and they will modify it, or sometimes not even modify it. They'll just sign off it. So you have to manage to make each LOR out of the 3 LORs kind of different in a way. If you can, I would say if you have this summer ahead of you before you start all this, probably try to do research or some work with some professor so that you can at least get one solid LOR from one reliable person. And the others you can also get from people you've taken classes with, not necessarily done research with. The person who you've taken a bunch of classes with can also write you an LOR. Or if you've done an internship, the internship manager can write you an LOR. So all of those count. I even used the internship LOR for my PhD application, which is you would think would not be a good idea because it's for research, but it all counts. And yeah, so I would just say as final words of advice that I know this was a lot of information, but hopefully we haven't done more harm in getting you guys more intimidated. You guys have a lot of time, but having said that, it's like good to know all this information in advance, but it's also good to like, because you have all this information in advance, it's also good to like start early and like start doing. I mean, everything takes time. Like making a resume takes time. Writing an SOP takes a lot of time. Preparing for GRE takes time. So like I would say, since you have this time before, like I pretty much did everything between September and December, and that's what people end up doing. And then it becomes like very hectic with the placements and everything, like as Vandana was saying. So I would say to start earlier and like finish your application earlier. Don't aim to finish it by December 15th. Aim to finish it by like November. And yeah, write your GRE earlier. And yeah, the earlier you do things, the better it's going to be. And yeah, I mean, irrespective of rank, wherever you get in, it's going to be awesome. You're going to learn like a shit ton. I mean, after coming here, I feel like I haven't learned shit in Bassett. So like, it's going to be hard, but you're going to learn a lot. And yeah, it's going to be awesome. And don't get disheartened if you don't get in anywhere, because there's so many other factors apart from your own application. You can have a brilliant application and you cannot get in anywhere. It's so many other things, and everything changes from year to year. The amount of money that the college has, the amount of seats that they're taking. They have like these weird like diversity statistics. They don't want to take like 100% Indians and stuff. So there's a lot of other factors behind the scenes. So definitely, if you get a rejection, don't feel down. And like, I mean, it's natural to feel down. Of course, you will feel down, but like, don't blame yourself thinking that you're like super dumb or something, because it happens to all of us. And if you don't get in, you can just try again next year. And honestly, like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people did that. My own sister did that. She worked for like 3 years before applying. A lot of people, like, there's no hurry. Like, I feel like in the Indian system, we make it seem like every year is crucial. And like, if you're not doing something for the next year, then you're like just wasting your life and stuff like that. But that's really not how the world works. And these 1 or 2 years, like if you get in somewhere which you're not super happy about, then instead of like just settling on it, I would say like, don't take it and just like defer it if you can, and like try again next year. Like, if you're doing this, you're taking a loan, spending a lot of money doing this, might as well like do it right. And yeah, so yeah, that's all I have to say, I guess. Thanks for your questions, and thanks Haritha and Sonuja for hosting this.
Thank you, Tarun. Moving on to Keertan.
Hi. So I know that we're running out of time. So, and also Vandana and Tarun went through pretty much everything that you need to know for GRE. I just wanted to like put in a few little tips here and there, having given it only last year. So while math is easy, I mean, it is 10th grade math, but at the same time, it's not as easy as ETS or Manhattan or Kaplan books. These are basically companies who help you out with your preparation for GRE. It's not as easy as they make it seem. So ETS is the official company who takes the GRE test itself. They have 2 free GRE sample tests, and you can also buy some more. Okay, and the math, it's not hard in terms of concepts, but some sections are lengthier than you expect them to be. So, and if you find yourself struggling for time in math, you find yourself panicking because you know that you cannot make any mistakes at all. So my recommendation would be, math you can learn from anywhere, but definitely if you're thinking of buying a certain number of tests to practice on, I would highly recommend buying the ETS tests itself. And about what I did, so I went through the GRE math review, and then it was just questions. This GRE math review is by ETS itself. And also the English, I would highly, highly recommend something which is considered as the Bible, which is basically Manhattan's 5-pounder book. That I went through. And for words, I would also, like Tarun mentioned, I would highly recommend the flashcards themselves, which is an app that you can get on your phone, and you can learn words from that. Another thing I would like to say is that make your own list of words and revise this list often, because if you will take 2 months to prepare, the words that you learned at the beginning of the 2 months, you would have forgotten if you don't keep going through these words. And these words are very important because there's a writing section also. If you can incorporate these words into your writing section, your writing is going to turn out to be a lot better. And also, I also had to mention one other thing. Oh yeah, it's just it's just practice and practice. And it seems like, how will you get better at English with practice? But you actually do end up getting better. And I know it seems daunting, but it's not a difficult exam. It's not JEE. It doesn't take 2 years of your time to prepare for. Just give yourself at least 2.5 to 3 months, at least dedicate 3 hours a day to it, and you will substantially increase your chances of doing well. Once you have your GRE prep down, I feel like TOEFL is much easier. And also about your SOP, I don't know if it got sent out on the chat already, but there is a video about how to write an SOP by this channel called Chat. So CHET. So that channel has like a wonderful video about how to go about writing your SOP. And I feel like more than that video, you need to have the answers down for yourself before you start writing an SOP. It'll not only make your application process much easier, but if you're not passionate about like what you're doing, or you're half-hearted about applying to masters in the first place, you're going to have a far harder time when you do get here and having to deal with the rigors of a master's program itself. And about LORs, it's never too late. I was in the situation where after I think 5 sems, I was like, oh my God, who do I even go to? So I actually took on extra work in my 6th sem. You guys must know it. 6th sem is the heaviest, but I took on extra work. I took on a project for no credit. I took on a TA-ship just so that at the end of this, I had a rapport with some of my professors who I could go and then ask for LORs from. Because if I look back at the people, my professors from the first 4 sems, literally none of them would give me an LOR. They'll be like, who is this fellow? I haven't even seen him in class. So I'm just putting it out there that it's all right. Okay. And that with that, I want to just say that even if you don't get into the place that you aspire to get in, it's completely okay, because there is no ranking system. So the way jobs at least work in the United States is that if you're good enough, your college is almost irrelevant. If you're good enough, you have the skills, you're able to get yourself that interview. That's the hard part. So if you're able to get yourself the interview and you have the skills that they're looking for, your college is almost irrelevant. So don't beat yourself up for for not getting into the places that you aspire to get into. If you're satisfied with where you do get into, go ahead, chase your dreams down. And hopefully at that point you have found your passion. If you haven't, just explore all the coursework that you have done. I'm sure at some point you have thought that, hey, this is cool. Go think about this, go back to it and like explore as much as you can. Now is a great time to do so. And also, like I mentioned before, the PS material that you have for the coursework is great, at least for CS. And one other thing is to be honest with yourself, both in your SOPs and everything else that you're trying to say and do, because it shows if you're not 100% committed and you're not being completely honest. And another thing that I cannot stress enough on is, please do not compare yourself to anyone else. Everybody else's journey is extremely like different. People, you'll find your best friends getting admits, from like colleges that like you wanted to get into. You're on your own path and you will get something that's perfect for you. And that's the way the entire admissions process itself is set up. And learn to be okay with rejections. Of course, it stings, it's hard, but all you need at the end of the day is one admit, to be fair. Because if you get that one admit, then you applied in the first place because you want to go there. Otherwise, why waste an admit at all? You've gotten your one admit, you're good. Okay. So, and that's something that I learned in my master's as well, because I've applied to like 150 internships right now, and I haven't gotten an internship yet. So you will need to be okay with rejections, because it's going to happen a lot and it's not the end of anything. It's okay. Just pick yourself up and move on from it. And regardless of where you are, it's never too late to start. Okay. Just take your tasks, break it down, little steps every day, done with passion. I feel like if you trust your discipline, trust your work ethic, you will surprise yourself in terms of how much you can achieve over the amount of time, regardless of how much it is that you have to prepare. So yeah, with that, I want to say that thanks for sticking along for this long. I know it was a lot of information, and of course, thanks to Swanuja and Harita for organizing this and making it such a great show.
Thank you so much, Keertan. Especially, I think you have stayed up till I think 1 o'clock to answer all our questions. So really, thank you so much about that. And I think Hemkesh wants to add to this.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one small point to the SOP. Currently, I actually review a lot of SOPs from my juniors as well as my batchmates. A common mistake I see everyone doing that is they pour the resume into the SOP and just tell the same story which is in the resume in just lengthier words. The statement of purpose is what's your purpose. So the purpose is that you just can't tell, I did this project, I did this internship, hence I want to get into your college. What you actually need to do is you have to show the SOP is the only chance to add some personality to your application, make it a bit different from your resume, show that you're successful and independent, and you need to tell a story which is consistent with your resume as well. Why did you decide on this area of research? What steps have you taken to prepare yourself for graduate school? What challenges have you gone through and set yourself apart from the other applicants? What do you want to do in graduate school? How will you graduate? How will graduate school prepare you for a career? So if you answer all these questions and rather than just copy the resume into this, this will be one way you can set yourself apart from all the applicants who are also applying to the same university. And the common mistake is not to copy the resume into the SOP. And finally, I wanted to say that you're making sacrifices now by doing all these placements and the masters, GRE, TOEFL, all these effort is going now. But I'll guarantee you that you'll have 10x benefits in the future. You might see see other departments, other students doing nothing at this point, chilling. Don't compare yourself to them. You will definitely have a brighter future. You will be propelled to a higher pedestal from which you can achieve more than currently. So they will definitely put in this hard work and sacrifice and discipline as well. And lastly, thank you, Harita, Swanuja, Pranavi, and Zitti for hosting this session. This initiative is very amazing. When I was a junior at PES, I was always attending all these sessions from seniors, every single session, whether it be placement sessions or higher studies sessions. I used to attend and all of them were helpful. I hope I could give back to the students of PES in this way as well. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and thanks for sticking on so far. I hope that you guys at one point when you become through this process, you get to give back to the juniors as well. So thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Hamcash. We just have a short, quick, but important question about finances. I think you can give us a very short answer about this. How expensive is it to manage finances, like staying there alone, the expenses that come with that loan, etc.?
Yeah, as Vandana mentioned before, earlier in the session, there's definitely scholarships available and also TA-ship, RA-ship, etc. In my case, at USC, I'll give you the exact number. Yeah, so the tuition was around $60,000. USC is pretty expensive, which will translate to around 44 to 45 lakhs currently. All that, so you either need to take an educational loan or pay for that yourself. USC has very few scholarship applications because it's a private university. On the other hand, as Vandana mentioned about the TA-ship, RA-ship, I actually got an on-campus job in USC, which helped me to negate all the other costs like rent and cost of living, which was coming to around $1,000 per month. So definitely look up for programs which have TA-ship, RA-ship, on-campus jobs, research positions which pay. Do that so that it will help negate some costs during the program. And as Vandana said before, also look up at scholarships. She got her full scholarship and you don't have to pay for the program. So try to look for those programs as well so that you don't have to pay much for the program.
Right. Thank you so much, Hemkesh. And I think, Vandana, we can wrap up this session with, if you could give us a quick answer about opportunities outside the US when it comes to universities. and which are the good other countries we can try applying to and things like that.
Okay, so I'm not super sure about this, but I did hear a lot of things from my friends who applied to masters in Canada. There is Waterloo University, Toronto University, which is equally good as well. One thing I'm not very sure is what are the job opportunities if you're looking for doing jobs and not PhD. What are the job opportunities available in Canada? As far as I have heard, Canada is growing quite a lot, and there are a lot of job opportunities as well. So I would say try looking at, if you want to, let's say, pursue jobs after masters, and you want to, let's say, apply to Canada. Try to look at, factors like are there companies that sufficient number of companies that you can apply to in Canada. After your master's is done. Some people also shift from Canada to US to do their job opportunities. So just try to figure out what's the visa process and stuff like that, because that's going to be super important if you're planning to sort of stay in US. So if the visa is going to be a whole lot difficult, then going and doing your master's in Canada is going to be super hard for you to come back to US. So really depends on where you want to be. Another important factor is also weather. I knew where I wanted to be. For example, I wanted to be in California because I wanted the sun. I was in Illinois for 2 years and there was just snow everywhere, and I was pretty much probably depressed because it's just no sun, and I went through this polar vortex period, and there was pretty much no sunlight and stuff like that. So there's Pittsburgh as well, which is sort of close by, and there are companies in Pittsburgh. There's Google. There are a lot of companies, but do you really want to stay in Pittsburgh? Is that your priority? So that's the area, and the weather, if it's important to you, is also going to be a factor that's important where you're applying. And
yeah, you can go add on.
So I want to wrap up, my answers by saying thanks, Swanuja, thanks Harita for organizing this amazing session. This was definitely good for us to have a flashback and then try to figure out how we went through this entire process. It was definitely a nostalgia for me personally. I think one thing I want to advise students is, quote unquote, it's okay to go cry. Just keep crying. I used to cry almost, every week, and in front of my mom, in front of my parents, and if in front of my friends, and being so, lost in the entire process. But this is all going to be fruitful. You're going to learn a lot from this. You're going to be more stronger. So don't just be like, oh, I'm going through this phase, I'm just so lost and I have no hopes left in my life. No, that's definitely not going to be the case, given looking at your seniors and stuff like that. We guys have gone through pretty much similar scenarios. So I want to tell you guys to have hope and to keep working on what you want to do, because at the end of the day, definitely there is going to be success coming along.
Right. Thank you so much, Vandana. And I think with this, we are coming to an end to the session, because we really are running out of time. And I know there were very specific questions that were asked to us through the Google Forms, but we weren't able to answer them now. But do not worry. You can reach out to all the 4 speakers on LinkedIn, and they are super helpful. They will definitely get back to you and answer your questions, or connect you to the right people who are able to answer your very specific questions. We have sent out a feedback form in the live chat. Please do send us your feedback, which will help us to conduct such similar events in the future. Also, do follow CMS, the Changemakers Society, on Instagram and YouTube. We are definitely going to put out a summary of all the points that were covered today, so you can always refer to that for help. And also, you can stay updated for more such events in the future. Also, thank you to Pranavi for streaming the whole event for us. I've heard of it. It's going pretty smooth and flawlessly. So thank you so much for that, Pranavi. And thank you to Dhriti for collecting the live questions from the live chat. And thank you to all the viewers who made this a successful event. And you can always reach out to us if you have any more questions. Thank you, guys.